and gentlemen, you are more than welcome to this another episode of the Capital 11 show with my very special guest, Karl Daly, brought to you by Wigwam.ie SME Peer Support. Karl, good morning. Please say hi and show us your mug.
Good morning, Colm. Thanks for having me on, and good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well today.
Delighted to have you here, Karl. Let me just tell you a little bit about Karl before I bring the man himself in. Having plied his trade in the financial services industry for 35 plus years, you must have been 10, Karl. A huge Limerick advocate. Karl, a fellow Dub living in Limerick, moved at 6 months old to Sligo, where he spent his first 12 years. Spent some time in Ballybuffet in Donegal before returning to Limerick in 1978, age 16. That puts us all out of our misery. We know exactly where you are on the chart. Now living just over the border in Cratloe, Karl initiated a huge pivot, which I'm really excited to hear. Karl initiated a huge pivot following successfully selling his business in 2019 to focus on a passion to help others, but create another business and build a team of passionate people to create a real impact on our communities. So really looking forward to hearing all about that. That's the pivot and Humanli. And Karl, let's go straight into it at this stage, if that's okay. We had a few technical challenges earlier. Back on track now. In your own words,
good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Look, I'll go back to the beginning, I suppose, Colm. As I said, I grew up in a lovely place. My ma was a Dub and my dad was from County Clare, and they met in Dublin at college, and I was the firstborn. We were living in Ballykeefe, across from the regional hospital, but my mother didn't trust the doctors down on the west, so she went to Dublin to have me. So I was born in Mount Carmel Hospital while living in Ballykeefe. My dad got a job at Goulding's and we moved off to Sligo. So I grew up in Sligo in Ross's Point, which is a beautiful place by the sea. Spent 12 years there, fantastic time. Moved on then to Ballybuffet. My dad started with Goulding's Fertilizers and he got a job at the IDA. So he became regional manager of the IDA in Sligo, and then got the Northwest job, which was based in Lifford. But at the time, if you remember, and there's a couple of little interesting stories here, at that time, it was the mid-70s and the North was a bit chaotic. The Troubles were in full flow. So Lifford was right on the border with Strabane. So we decided he wanted the opportunity. He couldn't turn down this opportunity, but we lived in Ballybuffet, which is a little bit inland. So we lived a little bit away from the border. But I had a story about the first day I went to school in Donegal in Ballybuffet. I was told not to mix with a particular family because this particular family, and I'm speaking openly here because these were the times we lived in. This particular family were involved with the provisional IRA. And what happened with Karl, of course, went to school, was put sitting beside this guy, walked back home that evening to my house after school that afternoon with this guy, announced to my parents who my new friend was, and they freaked. But over the course of months and a couple of years, we became very friendly. But that all came to an abrupt end around 1976, 77, when I was up in the bog working with a guy one day. We used to just go up and help this guy out. And I'll just tell a quick story. There was a loud bang. And this actually happened. We didn't know what it was. We were only young guys. We were just wondering what happened. But that evening, what turned out apparently was that two guys had gone over the border through an unapproved road, which at the time, that would be a road that would cross the border from the Republic into the north and wasn't manned. But due to some intelligence or whatever, they came around a corner apparently, as the story goes, and there was a checkpoint there. There was an army checkpoint. They panicked, and they had a bomb in the car that they were going across the border to do some damage with. They tried to undo this, and they panicked and they blew themselves up. But what I'm getting to is the story is that the family and my best friend at the time, they apparently had been involved with recruiting young people for the IRA. And overnight with this happening, the family disappeared from town, from Ballybuffet. I never saw them again, never saw my friend again, never saw them again. And that was the end of that. So look, I'm just making the point there were crazy times. My dad then, being from Clare, came back down, got the regional manager's job in the IDA in Limerick, and we came back down to Limerick. So I started my career after leaving St. Clement's in a warehouse. I never went to college, didn't do college, wasn't hugely fond of school, but my mother got sick of me working in this place. So after about 6 months, she got me a job in insurance through a contact in Dublin. And I was supposed to head off to Dublin. I remember going for the interview, having to buy a suit. I'd never worn a suit in my life. It was alien to me. So I put on this suit, went to the interview, hated every minute of it. But to keep my man happy, I suppose, I said, I need to start doing something. So I got a job in insurance. And as it turned out, the guy, it was the Insurance Corporation of Ireland at the time, if anybody has heard of them. So I got a job in the ICI in Dublin, but 2 weeks before I was due to start, a guy in ICI in Limerick in Sarsfield House wanted to transfer to Dublin. So between the jigs and the reels, we did a swap, and I ended up going into ICI in Limerick and staying at home, and that guy went off to Dublin. So it started from there. So I had a career in general insurance, which I actually hated. That was motor, liability, house insurance, no interest whatsoever. It was all administration, etc., etc. And for me, I suppose, look, to fast forward, for me, life is all about people. I love people. It's not the particular industry. I love the industry that I've been involved in for the last 35 years. It's been a fantastic industry, but it's because of the people that I've come across, the people that I've met, the people that I've worked with in teams, and the people that I've developed in teams. That's what life for me is all about. And I have an inherent, if there's one lesson that I've learned and that I pass on to people today, I have a total belief that inherently people are good. And I think that if you are starting off on a journey, meeting somebody for the first time, interviewing somebody, working with somebody, you should always work on the premise that this person is good. Not based on their reputation or something that you've heard. You judge them for yourself. And I think if you start on that premise, 99.9% of the time, you come out saying, you know what, I don't know what people were saying about them. They're actually a very nice person. So for me, it's all about people.
And you know what, I'll come in if I may on that, Karl. I think you're 100% right. I would like to believe that that's my default setting too, that I trust everybody until they prove themselves untrustworthy. If I may just bring you back to those early years, and first of all, apologies to one and all for the technical challenge we had starting, particularly apologies to you, Karl, and thanks for bearing with us. But if you go, even what you just said there about trusting people and giving them the benefit of the doubt, you did that on day one in school, right, with that young lad. Now here's the thing, that young lad was born into circumstances completely beyond his own control. Right? We've no idea where he is these days, etc. We've no idea what his own affiliations are now. But back in the day, he had no choice. He was born into what do you call it? Warren Buffett calls it the ovarian lottery. And he had been born into those circumstances. You gave him the benefit of the doubt, even though you were told don't touch them, right? And then circumstances took over, and you haven't seen the guy since, and we hope that he's doing okay. But I think it has a pattern that has followed you through your career. You and I met in the Midwest probably 20 years ago at this stage.
Yeah, so.
You're in financial services, but you're 100% right. Financial services is a service to people. So I'm really curious. Would you mind taking us through those early years into, are you comfortable to talk about the collaboration with Karl? And then
absolutely, yeah. I started off, as I said, in general insurance, but I never liked it. And I was in an office, and the people interaction wasn't huge. It was more stuck on a desk and admin. So I got an opportunity to join a company, an accounting stroke financial services company. They were farm accountants. I took it with both hands. Got my first company car. I was on the road. It was one of those old, had a phone, a mobile phone. If people remember, mobile was a phone that had a wire attached to it, to the car. So you couldn't actually take it out of the car. So it was only mobile from the point of view of you took it with you, but once you left your car, the phone stayed there. So it was funny. But look, I've spent half of my career working for companies. So I worked for this company. I worked for the old Norwich Union, which is now Aviva, and always on the consultancy side and working with brokers and trying to develop business. I then migrated to Canada Life, which was a fantastic 5 years. They were starting off in the business. They were seen as a direct sales company, where the people were salespeople knocking on doors, but they wanted to start what they called a broker division. So they wanted to start working with the accountants and the brokers and building up a whole side of the business there. So I got a massive opportunity to start that down in Limerick, and I grabbed that with both hands, and that was the whole developmental thing. And then, as I knew of old, and I didn't want to repeat my own life with my own family, when you work for a company, you can only go so far when you're living in the Midwest. And if they offer you something in Dublin or somewhere else to progress your career and you don't take it, you don't get asked a second time. And that's what happened. We had a nice life here in Limerick, and we didn't want to try and replicate that in Dublin and start moving the kids, etc. So I decided I'd turn down the opportunities I got, and I knew I was on the slippery road to exit from that company. And that was fine. That was fine with me. And I ended up then setting up my own business in 2000. And to be fair, with full cooperation from Canada Life, they were so helpful. And we left on great terms. They helped me set the thing up because I was going to give them business and I was going to be getting, hopefully, you know, contacts and clients for them. So that worked out fantastically well for about 2 years. And then we had the dot-com bubble and there was a crash. And for people who don't understand the business, the model for a financial advisor back in the early noughties was sell, 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 commission driven. And the issue was I went along, got over the 2002 bubble, built up my network of people, built up my network of clients, got loads and loads of contacts. But when 07 and 08 came and there was a crash, I went from having the best year in business in 2007, my best year in my whole career. It was followed in 2008 by my worst year, just like that, overnight. And it was because of the model. It was because of the commission model. And if somebody was buying a product from you, buying a pension or a life assurance product, that was fantastic. But because the recession hit and nobody had any money and their futures were in doubt and their jobs were in doubt, I was well down the list. Pensions stopped, life assurance premiums stopped. So my income effectively stopped virtually overnight. I had 6 people working with me and I had to cut that down to 2 in the space of about 6 months. But what I would say to people was, if you don't learn from something like that, you're a fool. You really are. So I sat back. I remember my wife, Mary, who has been a super supporter of me all the way along, she asked me what plan B was. And I said, I don't have a plan B. This is what I do. But I sat down and I looked at the model and I looked to the States and I looked to the UK and I saw what financial planning firms are going. The one thing I'll say is that if you have integrity and if you treat people right, they'll stick with you. And my clients, every single one of them, stuck with me through the bad times because I was always honest with them and upfront with them. When things were good, I told them and we celebrated together. And when things were bad, I went and I met them face to face and said, look, things are shite, excuse my language.
I'm going to initiate a boule de bus. It's already started in the cafe, and initiate a boule de bus for that because I think you've explained yourself beautifully well there, and it goes back to your belief in that people are inherently good, and you've treated them right all the way, and 100% of your clients stayed with you. So happy days, well done, well deserved, Karl Daly.
And they did, Colm, and that allowed me to phase into what the new setup. And the new setup was simply this. I started to change the business model. I came back to my clients and said, look, I can't get paid any money for the business you have. But if I was to continue working with you and servicing you and we were to tag on a little charge so that I can keep the doors open and the lights on and keep the couple of people that I have employed, will you stick with me? And they did. And that's what the journey that led me into meeting Karl Widger. So he was on the same hymn sheet with his business. And we met at a couple of seminars and we were asking the same questions and saying the same thing. And we had met a couple of months earlier, but we didn't progress. And we went away, but we revisited and met again. And I remember in the Radisson Hotel in Galway, after being at a seminar hosted by, I think it was Friends First at the time, we stood at the lift before we were going home on a Friday evening after a day. And we both said to each other, we should be talking again. Do you agree? And Karl agreed and I agreed. And I said, well, look, hold that thought, have a nice weekend, and I'll buzz you on Monday. And what emerged from that then was Metis Ireland. And to be fair, and this isn't blowing my trumpet or anyone's trumpet, we built a company in 5 years that has led the way in financial planning. And why I can say that, honestly, is that it has been completely client-centric. All the customers that work with us in Metis up until the time I left last year, it was all about them. It wasn't about selling them products. We didn't mention products. We burnt shredded, got rid of every brochure belonging to every life assurance company. We worked with Frawley branding. We put a whole story and philosophy together for Metis and why you should work with us. And it was all about listening to the client, putting their financial plan together. What did they want out of life? What was their money about? Why did they get up in the morning? What made them tick? That's what the conversations were about. And they were incredible conversations and they were so empowering. And people really, really bought into that. And only at the end of the process did we talk about, okay, to achieve that, you need to do A, B, C, D, E. And the signs are on. We built a fantastic company in a very short period of time. I had come to the end of that journey because I felt it was going in a direction that I didn't want to take. And I wanted to do something else. And that's what led to the new Humanli idea.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. I know both Karls, and you know, partnerships can be difficult. Let's be honest, partnerships can be difficult. So the fact that these two gentlemen got together, they respected each other as worthy competitors perhaps at one time, and then joined forces. And as you say, Karl, in a handful of years, built a wonderful company, a groundbreaking, industry-leading company. So congratulations on that. And then, you know, I've watched your journey, as you know. So I watched you exit, and I was curious about the exit. Delighted for you, of course, delighted for you. And then Humanli has been born as a result of that exit. So congrats on the exit first. And then tell us about Humanli. Based on what we've heard about so far, it sort of makes sense that you're sticking with the human connection. Tell us.
Yeah, but look at, as I said to the beginning, for me, careers and life and everything is about people. It all starts with people, it continues with people, and it ends with people. And that's what I like about being in business. The exit worked out perfect, just so well for me. If it was happening this year, it mightn't have happened. And so I was able to sell my shareholding in the business and move on, which allowed me the freedom then to look at what I wanted to do. And I'll be honest with you, I had the seeds of an idea. I wasn't sure what it was. And I was developing it all the time and thinking about it. I've always done lots of charity work and fundraising, as some of the people on the call will know. And I've tried to help other people. I do have an altruistic nature within me that I like to help other people and see other people happy. That's just something that's inbuilt as part of the people thing. So the groundbreaker for me was I had a conversation. She won't mind me mentioning her name, but I had a conversation with Helen Downs one day in Shannon Chamber, and she said to me, I heard you're leaving Metis. What are you going to do? What is your future? I assume you're not retiring. And I said, Helen, so to answer her, I blurbed out something about what I thought I was going to do, which, to be honest with you, it still wasn't clear. But it made a little bit of sense when I actually said it, and it made huge sense to her. And she said to me, you need to come out and talk to me because we've done a lot of work on that, what you're talking about. So in a nutshell, what Humanli is about is simply this. On one side, you have a lot of businesses, corporates, wealthy people, contacts that I've built up over the years, people that have been very, very successful, that want to do good in the community. They want to do it. On the other side, you have charities, community groups that are helping lots and lots of people, but it's a constant struggle to get funds, to get resources, to get people to buy in with them and go on a journey with them so that they can get projects from A to Z. And what the Shannon Chamber did a survey of all the companies in the Shannon region on their CSR. So for people that are not familiar, CSR, corporate social responsibility. So the area that Humanli is focusing on is social impact. So companies love to give back and they love to get their people involved in social impact. But what was happening in a lot of cases, Colm, was that companies were just ticking a box at the end of the year, writing a check to a charity, taking a photograph and getting a little bit of publicity, and that was their CSR box done. And when it was probed a little bit further by Shannon Chamber, what came out of it was that there was a need for somebody to dig down a little deeper, talk to companies, look at them a bit closer, investigate what their brand was about, look at what worked for them in the past in this social impact space, what didn't work, why it didn't work, were they getting their people involved, what were their people interested in that worked with them, were there people interested in volunteering and all that kind of stuff. So what we've developed is a whole process for a corporate where we can go in and do a social impact assessment. They'll come out with a report and they'll come out with a whole program that they should get involved in, and Humanli will implement that program for them. So that's the advantage for working with us on the corporate side, that you get a strategic plan in relation to utilizing your budget and your time on the social impact work that you want to do much more efficiently. On the other side, for the community groups and the charities, and it worked in my favor, the charities regulator is now insisting that all charities have to meet a certain standard. So we've researched this and worked on this. So what we're going to do is that we're going to be able to put the charities, the local charities, the family-based charities, the children's charities, the mental health, the homelessness, put them through a process where they can actually qualify under the charities regulator status and become a regulated charity. That then will allow them to become part of the Humanli family, and we will be able to open doors for them on the corporate side where they can actually get benefits, and maybe people that can donate money that couldn't heretofore. So what I'm trying to create is the Humanli family, which is effectively an ecosystem of, on one side, money, resources and people, and on the other side, people that can benefit from all of this and create some good in the local community, communities across Ireland, and hopefully wider than that in time. That's it in a nutshell.
Karl, that is absolutely wonderful work. Bula Bus, one and all, for Karl Daly and Humanli. Really great idea. Love the fact that you hadn't really an idea what was going to happen. You just sort of blurted it out, and then you said, that sounds good. And Helen Downs, whom we know, she said, you know, there's something in that. Love the fact that you're basically, dare I say it, the Uber, right? Uber, as we know, connects drivers with riders, and Airbnb connects, you know, people with rooms with people who want a room. And you're standing in a very important space, a hugely important space, where you're standing between the corporates who want to do good, genuinely, right, and the charities who need support. Yeah. And neither side of that coin talks the other's language, right? So the corporates are out there throwing resources and money at ideas and the odd bit of this and the odd bit of that, but there's no real strategy around it most of the time. And the charities are screaming, jumping up and down, saying, here I am, here I am, here I am. And you're in the two based, I presume, on a set of values. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I've learned so much. Like the whole pandemic situation for me has been fantastic, because I've been able to focus and evolve the idea and talk to lots of people. When I worked with Frawley on the branding, I met Tony Frawley for a cup of coffee back in November, and he got it straight away, and he said, Karl, this is fantastic. We can work with you on this. So we developed the whole branding and the messaging and the proposition. And the first person I went back and to do the presentation was to Helen Downs, because she, as far as I'm concerned, she got the whole thing going for me in my head, and she was blown away by it. And she kept saying to me, and it resonated back a year ago when she mentioned it, she said, Karl, there's an opening for someone to do this, but to do it on a best practice basis, not willy-nilly. Do it with integrity, use best practices. And that's what I kept thinking about when I was developing it. And I said that to Tony Frawley and his team, Kieran and Mandy. He said, look, this has to be done properly. It has to be for the benefit of, you know, both sides of the equation. So I've been able to develop this over the last 2 or 3 months. I've done presentations, Zoom presentations, to tons of people. The reception has been fantastic. I got my first 2 corporate clients, new clients, 2 weeks ago, so they're on board and just waiting to go when this whole thing you know, lifts a little bit. I'm chomping at the bit to get out and meet people, because I'm albeit this Zoom stuff is fantastic, you can't beat looking into someone's eye and having a cup of coffee and sharing your passion and trying to get the message across with them. You can only do it to a certain degree on this forum. But I do think, Colm, I do think that there's definitely an opening for this, and it can be developed maybe to an online situation. So I think this is something that can be taken as far as I want to take it. But for now, we'll just do it in baby steps. But look, at the legacy for me is that if I can, in 10 years' time, if I look back and I can create a business that creates jobs, and I bring a team on board of like-minded people, and we can create real social impact, firstly in Limerick, then the Midwest, then Ireland, and then further afield. Again, for me, that's what it's all about. And it's about giving back. I've had a good life, a good career. I've a good family behind me. I've met lots and lots of good people, and you know they've hung in with me over the years. So let's try and drive this on and do something really impactful. And the whole idea of the branding, as you can see behind me, it's Humanli. It's making social impact possible. And if you look at the letter A in Humanli, it's pointing down to possible. So it's humanly possible. So it's all about the people again. It comes back to people for me.
I absolutely love it. I love it, love it, love it. And Frawley branding all over it as well, which is wonderful. By the way, I'm trying to get Tony Frawley to come on the Coffee at 11 show, and he's resisting. So I need you to have a word in his ear, please.
Okay.
No more than yourself, Karl Daly, one of life's good guys. So ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman is, I think you'd agree, one of life's good guys. So Bula Bus, give us a thumbs up there where you can. Apologies that video has been causing us problems today. You get the thumbs up all over the place, Karl. Karl, it's a pleasure knowing you, and you're despite everything, you sort of fly under the radar a little, dare I say it. You're not the brash out there in people's faces, day in, day out, but you're very good at making very deep connections with great people. And they're attracted to you, and they're drawn to you, and that's how you're going to be able to make these connections. Do you mind me asking, what's the business model behind Humanli? I love the fact that you talk about legacy, and I can see it down the road. But what's the business model? What will keep the doors open, the lights on?
Yeah, well, look, we struggled with that for a while, but I'm going to go back to the Metis example and how we pivoted back in 2014. After the crash, and we were coming back in. So it's simply this, Colm. We have a whole process put in place for the corporates. So we will offer corporates what we call an SIA, a social impact assessment. So we have a presentation put together for that. So if a company wants to engage with me to work with them, we will charge them to do their social impact assessment. And what they will end up with is a report, a very detailed report, based on lots of questions that we will ask them, lots of talking to them, the right people in the organization, their staff. We will give them a report with a detailed program of events that they should get involved in. And there's a one-off charge for that. So that's one side of it. Now they can either at that point walk away with the report under their arm and say, thank you very much, Karl. Thank you very much, Humanli. We're going to go off and implement this ourselves. But in a lot of cases, what we found with Metis was they like what you're saying, and they love working with you, and they love this report. So then what we're hoping is that they will retain Humanli to implement the report. And that will be what we call an SIP, which is a social impact program. And we will operate the SIP on a retainer basis. So we will say to them, brilliant. We're going to implement everything that came out of the report, the assessment report, and this is what we're going to do, and we put this in place, and we'll come back to you, we'll keep it going, we'll keep it flowing, and we'll charge them a monthly retainer to do that. And that's why I'm creating the ecosystem of event managers, speakers, coaches, people like yourself, people like Cara O'Shea, who I can see is on the call this morning. I will have an ecosystem of people who might be able to offer something that could be part of a social impact program for a company. And that will be all built in as part of the cost that Humanli will be charging the company. So what might come out of a report typically will be, we'll do a talk for all your staff. We'll do an event. We'll support a charity. So whatever comes out of it, we will implement that program for them and charge them on an ongoing basis. One of the big things that came back from companies was that they spend money with charities, and the charity goes off, and they're very grateful, the charity are very grateful to get the money, but they go off and they're busy doing what they do, and there's no feedback given to the company. So we will do things like creating a two-way street where the charity might come back in as part of the program to talk to the company and say, look, you gave us 10 grand this year, this is what we did, these are the people you helped, this is the impact that your interruption has had for us. And this is the kind of thing that Humanli is going to create. So the business model, as I said to you, is an initial fee for that work, and then an ongoing fee if they want to continue working with us to implement their program. That make sense?
It makes perfect sense, absolutely perfect sense. It's a beautiful model. Do you know what it reminded me when I came to Limerick first? We were getting a bit of work done in the garden, right? And this guy met him through one of the networks that I got involved in. This guy said, okay, he says, I'll do a plan for you. He was a landscaper. And he said, right, he said, I'll draft you up a plan, photographs, and show you what plants are going where, and I'll charge you 200 quid or whatever it was for the plan. And I said, well, why would you charge me for the plan? Like, you know, you'd be doing the job. And he said, well, if I charge you for the plan is yours. I'll give it to you, right? And he says, then you can choose to work with me or not. If you choose to work with me, great, right? If you choose to not work with me, you have the plan. You can bring it to somebody else. So I love that. Your first report is a paid for event, okay? And there you have it. And you can decide to work with us or not, entirely up to yourself. Lovely.
Yeah, but look at Colm, it's like anything. I want to work with people who want to do this. And it's amazing how many dimensions there are to this. I've spoken to people who have organised events that are, I won't mention names or brands, but people in Limerick are aware of them. Their events have been going on for years. But when I dug down and described how I'd love to get involved with them, the feedback that came back was that, you know, a lot of the stuff that goes on in the background is pulled together last minute and not done properly. It looks fantastic out there in the public domain, but there's a lot of sweaty people at the last minute, you know, thanking their lucky stars that this thing came together. And one of the organisers said to me, look, Karl, if you were sitting across the table with your organisation and a plan in place at a certain event next year, I'd be a very happy person to see that. So there's actually openings everywhere for this, for Humanli.
It's wonderful, and we wish you every success with it, Karl. Quick question before we go to, we're going to go to Q&A from the floor in just a second. Quick question, is Humanli, do you mind me asking, is Humanli currently a charity itself or perhaps a not-for-profit, or how is it structured?
No, not yet. No, we've looked at that and we haven't gone that far yet. We've started inquiries, Colm, there's a bit of a process there because it's relatively new. We'll see. But I'd like to see, could we get charitable status for it? Yeah.
Yeah, I realise it is new and there is a process to go through. So I just wondered where your head was in relation to it. How can people that are on the call, Eamon very kindly put in the URL for Humanli there into the chat. How can people support you?
Well, for now, it's only spread the word. To be honest with you, what I want to try and get across to people is that, and I struggled with this during the pandemic, I don't want Humanli to be jumping on the back of every, you know, and I'm not demeaning stuff. There's amazing stuff going on out there at the moment to help charities that are in need, to help people that are in need during this pandemic. But if I was to start getting involved in everything, I'd be spreading the thing too thinly and spreading the wrong word. The bigger picture for Humanli is I want to work with corporates, people that have the resources, and that if they work with me properly and we can do this properly, they can make a real difference and a real impact. So I have to be a little bit patient from the Humanli point of view and resist a lot of the things that are happening at the moment. So from a people point of view, I just want people to spread the word. Have a look, follow us, follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, and as the thing evolves, you know, I'll get the word out there as to where people can help from a specific point of view.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from himself. Follow him wherever you can and support him. There's thumbs up going all over the place, which is great. Of course there is. I presume, Karl, you're living the dream at the moment. Is that fair to say?
Well, look, I'm taking things. I'm concentrating on Humanli, but I'm not under any pressure. Yeah, luckily enough.
Well, but that's what I mean. Like I'm not suggesting the dream is that you do nothing. It's that you're in a position to actually do what you love to do. Absolutely.
I've been lucky. Look at if this thing dragged on, if that deal dragged on 3 more months, Colm, it could have been out the gap. I could have been finished. Somebody could have pulled the plug on it, but it just worked out perfectly for me. We got it done by the end of last year. So yes, it has allowed me to the freedom to work on this concept without any financial or otherwise pressures, yeah, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted and well deserved, my friend. Well deserved, yeah. As I said, one of life's good guys. So thank you for that. Karl, before we go to Q&A from the floor, what one tip can you leave us with? What one tip will you give to your nearest and dearest? You get through COVID, come out in best shape by doing blah. What's the blah for Karl Daly? Yeah,
I think the blah is to keep in touch. If you've got a team of people or if you've got friends, keep in touch with people. I suppose I was going to just mention about leadership. Having worked in teams, with teams, being the head of teams, I think the one thing that people need in this current environment and going forward is compassion. I think compassion is a very important attribute to have. I think the leaders of the future are going to be compassionate people. I think the dictators, the day of the dictators is gone. It's over. People are too informed today. People want to work with people. People have access to the internet, access to information. I think the leaders of the future are people that have compassion for themselves firstly and for the people that they're surrounded by and their teams. So my tip is think about everyone that you're connected with, whether it's your family, your friends, your work colleagues, and ask how they're getting on, ask how they're doing, and be a compassionate leader. That's it.
Lovely, lovely. Karl Daly, you're clearly a compassionate leader and we applaud you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Folks, we'll go to Q&A from the floor now. We've had to turn videos off, so if anybody would like to ask a question, you might stick your video back on and pop in. And let's see who wants to come in and ask Karl a question. Oftentimes, Karl, when it's that good, people don't have any questions to ask. But Mark McCormick popping in on video. Mark, would you like to ask a question?
No, sorry, I was just popping in, but I spoke to Karl last week and I was delighted to actually get this opportunity just to listen in, because what I got from Karl last week was passion and sincerity. So that's going to drive this mission forward, and it's just lovely to watch all the people that he has supporting him here today. So yeah, well done and thumbs up.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers, appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
And indeed, Mark, well done you for stepping into the breach there unexpectedly. I apologise. I just saw you turn the video on and said, hey, great stuff. Lovely comment. Thank you.
That's just plenty loud men for you, jump in at the last minute.
Say that one more time.
People should follow Mark. He's doing some great work there. Create the Great. Should follow him on LinkedIn and Facebook. He's doing some great work as well.
That's Mark McCormick. What's the name of the business?
It's Create the Great in You. We do. I'm not here to talk about what we do. If anyone wants to have a look at it, we'll focus on Karl today. Thank you.
No, we'll check it out. We might come back to you for a chat. We'll check it out.
No problem.
I'm going to go to Princess Shelley.
Hey, Karl. Thank you for your wonderful chat. We've some really lovely comments that came into the cafe while you were talking and when we're even getting set up. And Kristen is a regular attendee here in the cafe. She's joining us from Sweden and has always got some great interactions. It's always a joy to read out the comments that she shares with us in the cafe. And she started out by saying, good to see you all, giving us all hello. And then, Karl, you popped in your Twitter. So everybody there, you've got Karl Daly 1. I see you did that yourself there, Karl. Karl Daly 1 on Twitter, and then you have your LinkedIn. And Eamon has popped all those links in there for everybody if you'd like to access his platforms there. And then Jan is joining us today, brand new in the cafe. Welcome, Jan. And Jan said, it was at the start of the interview, actually, Karl, and she said, Colm is right. Karl is an absolute legend. So that was at the start of the interview when Colm said, introduced you as the legend that is Karl Daly. And Jan wanted to make sure that there was an agreement there, that there's other people out there that think you're a legend. I thought that was lovely. Thank you for your comment there, Jan. And then we had Anne came back to us then and she said, thank you for sharing your story. It's great to hear your key values. So important, and the true long-lasting concept of any connection with people. The art of listening will be the even more appreciated and valued in the neo-normal. Wishing you a wonderful day. Isn't that a lovely comment, Karl?
Very nice. Excellent. Very nice. She's all right. Listening was something I've struggled with for years, but I'm getting better at it.
That's good. That's good. Irene then says, and there's a question in this actually, Karl, and I'll invite you to respond to that. Irene says, we know that the impact of COVID has been both positive and negative. Positive in bringing communities together and negative in terms of its economic impact. How do you think this will impact on your business, and do you feel that businesses will retain the positive can-do community spirit and not cut budgets for CSR? So what would your response to that be, Karl?
Yeah, well, look, that's something we've thought about. It's an interesting question, and I suppose it is a risk But I think if you go back to what I'm saying about people, companies, where I think there's going to be huge opportunity for Humanly is when people return to work, and especially people, companies that have teams of people. People have had good experiences and bad experiences throughout this pandemic situation, and people are going to come back to their places of work in different conditions from a mental point of view. And I think the employer that recognizes that, and that before he starts or she starts diving into business to get their business up and running again, I think if they spend a little bit of time concentrating on their people and their teams, and maybe putting something in place to just let people offload, have access to resources, to get themselves into the proper mental shape before they start back into the rat race again, they're the companies I think that will be successful and that will, I suppose, start the reopening quicker than everybody else. And that's where I think there could be an opening, and there should still be, I hope there will still be resources within companies for this. So what we'll be advocating to potential clients is, look, focus in on your own teams first. So if you've 10, 15, 20 people come back, for God's sake, make sure they're all okay. Some will come back buzzing, ready to go, but some will come back struggling and have had a hard time over the last 3 months. And that needs to be recognized, I think, from an employer point of view. So I'm hoping that budgets won't be cut. I'm hoping people will have learned what's important. And again, remember, we're all saying it every day, the frontline people, the people that were out there helping everybody else, keeping this whole thing going, it's all about that type of person. So
that's such great advice, such brilliant advice for everybody, no matter what industry they're in. There's some real brilliant advice there. And actually, and it kind of relates to the where you were going with that is, and Kristen came back and said, can only see the mission of Humanly will be more important and needed for future to come. Well done. So even before, that's before we even went to the question and popped that in. So yeah, I think we're agreeing with you there. Thanks for that wonderful question there, Irene, and that comment. Mark then, and again, he popped it in before he asked our question into the chat. A man with sincerity and true passion. Well done, Karl. So usually that's where I would do this, and everybody in the cafe. So yes, and then just to finish up then, Eamon said, the day of the dictator is gone, it's over. Love it. Be a compassionate leader. And that certainly sounds, listening to you, Karl, that's at the true core of where you come from, and listening, it's just a joy to hear. It's just fantastic. I think Colm mentioned that we have another question there waiting. If you just want to raise your hand or come on there for us onto the video, and we can make you live. Irene has then just responded and said, amazing story, and I've loved watching Karl develop the business over the years. So she's been watching your journey, Karl, which I think is lovely. I've no doubt this business will be a huge success, and thank you so much for sharing. So yeah.
Well, you can, if Irene's still listening, you can tell her, I'll tell her and tell to everybody here, she heads up this Scattery Island tour, and we went on the trip last year, myself and my wife. It was actually, talk about a difference in a year. It was during the Irish Open in Lahinch. So we took the week off and went to Lahinch and went to the golf and all that. But before that, we went over to Kilrush and got on Irene's boat and headed out to the Scattery Island. It was an incredible day. So anybody that hasn't been to Scattery Island, when things ease and the restrictions are lifted, get down to Kilrush Marina and check out Scattery Island tours.
Well, Irene is live there now, so yeah, so that's great.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Karl. And I wish you the best of luck with the new business. I think the concept is fantastic, and I really hope, I suppose the reason for my question was, the last time we were in our session, the same thing happened. People were very community conscious, very positively focused, and they slipped back. And I think, there's a real opportunity for businesses to embrace the kind of service that you're offering now. You're providing this link, and I just love the idea of, connecting back in with the charity after the event. You were spot on when you said these things just culminate into a frenzy to get the actual event done, and yet that connection then is lost again. Whereas, bringing them back in afterwards, it's a wonderful idea, and I've no doubt if businesses can remain focused and listen to what you're saying, that, they'll really benefit from taking on the program that you're doing. So the best of luck with it. Really looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Super. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support. Best luck to you.
thing.
And thank you all. Thank you, Princess Shelley, for that lovely segment. It's one of my favourite segments because I get to sit back and watch and have a listen to what's been going on in the cafe. And Irene Hamilton, it's great to hear you on. Irene is in fact our guest tomorrow. There's a lovely segue. So Irene Hamilton on tours is coming on as our guest tomorrow. So nice little practice run there, Irene, like your style. Well done. But you're 100% right, Karl Daly. I haven't yet managed to get down and go on the boat, but I'm so looking forward to it. And I was watching Marty and Brendan last night, and it was featured.
Yes, yeah. It actually was a great show, and it was lovely for West Clare, lovely for Kilrush, and a really nice tribute to the great work that the Kilrush RNLI do. I mean, it's fantastic, the stuff that they do. So it was lovely piece. So he's a great fan of West Clare, in fairness, Marty, and he supports us well with the coverage he gives it. So we were delighted to get our 4 or 5 minutes in there. It was wonderful.
It was lovely. It was lovely. Except when Brendan said, I'm coming back with the supermarket and a car park and something else. Cut. Anyway, great. And Ireland, really look forward to having you on the show tomorrow, really and truly, to hear what's going on.
Looking forward to chatting to you.
Happy days. But before we let everybody go, tell us of the award that was awarded to Scattery Island there. Was it last year or the year before?
Well, to be fair, we've been very lucky with Scattery. Originally, when we launched the business in 2017, it won the Eden Award. So it's now a European destination of excellence, and that gives it great kudos. There's actually there's 6 of those in Ireland in total. Newgrange is one, and Luped is another, and so we're very honoured that the island has been recognised for cultural tourism in that regard, given it'll be one of the lesser known islands in Ireland and only accessible really for the last 3 years. So we're excited about what's to come and the opportunity that's there for it.
Yeah, congratulations, Arian. Thank you for that. Looking forward to tomorrow. We'll chat later. Karl Daly, back to Karl Daly. Karl, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend, connecting this. And thank you for taking the time out and for being you, right? And for going with the flow. We had some technical challenges earlier, so thank you for being you and going with the flow with us. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give Karl Daly, our special guest today, one last boot of bus. Thank you for that, Karl. I'd like to thank the team for stepping up as always, and Princess Shelley, Eamon Smith and Katrina O'Brien. Great job earlier, and we're getting stronger by the day, which is wonderful. Thank you to Wigwam.ie SME Peer Support for their support. And just finish by saying, Karl Daly, namaste.
Thanks for having me on, lads. I really appreciate it. It was good fun. I enjoyed that. Thanks a million.